Ay, ay. Mhm. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Let me just do a little bit of a countdown for those who haven't seen this. Hello, good afternoon for those who are in Asia at least, and good morning or good evening for those who are watching us or joining us on a replay later on or on a different time zone. For those who are new in this platform, my name is Marilyn. I am the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited or CTS, and we brand ourselves as the Asia's most trusted customized solutions partner. We are registered as an event service company, which is based in Singapore, organizing training, summits, conferences to generate profit, cost savings, and impact towards your business. Despite that we are based in Singapore, most of our clients are all around Asia and some global clients as well. So today, what we're going to discuss is about the empathetic leader, which is balancing performance and people. As we know, empathy isn't soft, it's strategic. Let's explore how leaders can care for people while still driving results. And to introduce our panelist for today, I'd like to bring in Dennis. Dennis is the founder of Workflowers, a consultancy that builds automation, analytics, and AI solutions for startups, small and medium enterprise, and social enterprises. He specializes in helping organizations leverage technology to streamline operations, make data driven decisions, and scale efficiently. Dennis has over 20 years of experience across tech, investment, banking, and nonprofits, including leadership roles at Twitter and Terrascope. He holds an MBA from NYU Stern and a BA from Cornell University and is a CFA charter holder. Would you like to say hi?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Marion. That's such a nice introduction. Happy to be here today.
Thank you. Our pleasure to have you. And we would also like to introduce Roy Quejada. He's a seasoned executive with over 25 years of leadership experience, starting his career as a service crew member while studying in college. Through hard work, resilience, and a sharp strategic mind, he rose through the ranks to become Chief Executive Officer with over a decade in C level roles. Roy's journey from the ground up is a proof that determination and adaptability can take you anywhere. And today, he shares his insights to inspire and guide future leaders like you on your own path to success. Hi, Sir Roy.
Hi, Marilyn. Thank you for that introduction. Happy to be part of this session today.
You're welcome and looking forward to your insights. And last but not the least, we have Sharon Carol Lamb. She's a seasoned BPO leader, passionate about building creative, high performing teams. With a solid track record in driving success, she focuses on fostering a culture of compassion, competence, and continuous learning. Sharon advocates for a collaborative and inclusive work culture, encouraging unique perspectives and ideas by nurturing trust and respect. And she believes we can unlock our team's full potential and drive sustainable growth. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. And to start with our discussion, I'd like to address my question to Sharon first, ladies first this time. What practices help build psychological safety without lowering standards, especially that you're in operation side? So, what's your take on this?
I think I would say like the best way to actually build like a safe space. I would say that building a safe space for our people without actually compromising standards. In my experience, it's like setting the expectations on set my team. It's like as leaders, we really have to define goals. I mean, every organization has should have those measures, and you really have to clearly define your goals. What is our targets? What is our success measures? And high standards, I would say, work on set or works best if on set we are able to clearly define our goals. Second, I would also say that I am investing more on one-on-ones, like regular check-ins to my team, and then coach not just to correct but to ask what help needed. I mean, using those regular check-ins to ask what is their help needed, it makes people feel that making mistakes is not actually a sin, right? I mean, that's reality. I mean, our team would always have that chance to make mistake, but it should be taken as an opportunity for growth. And in the workforce, I would always tell them that it's not our intention. We go each day to our work with no intention to fail. So if ever we fail, we really have to be there as a leader to help them out. And then third would be recognizing small wins, recognizing the effort and initiative of our people. Uh, we should acknowledge people who take risk, who share their proactiveness, share their ideas, even if sometimes the results are not the ones that we're expecting. Um, and then fourth one, I think, is to build a community wherein we can promote honest dialogues. I mean, they can share they can share their thoughts without the fear of being judged. It actually, if we foster like a space where people speak up and then ask questions, admit their mistakes, it's actually also building a safe space for them to be their best self, and it's okay if it's not, if they're not okay. And then last one, I think it's really being transparent. Lead with fairness, I would say. Because sometimes creating psychological safe space to our people is not just lowering the bar. It's more on raising their confidence to actually reach their goals. So basically, high performance will just follow if people have like a workspace that supports them and knows when to help them, especially if they commit mistakes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that great summary. And I'm actually flashing the summary of what you just shared, ensuring that the expectations and goals are set beforehand, investing in regular check-ins, because this is the danger of having like once a year performance
Yeah.
review, right? You don't really get to correct it right away, and some like situations have been forgotten, and that gives really so much value in the regular check-ins, as well as coaching the team, as you've mentioned. Of course, we also recognize small wins, building community for honest dialogues, and being transparent and leading with fairness. I really love these short and sweet answers from you. And so that goes to the next question, which I'd like to address to Sir Roy. So, how do you model emotional intelligence imagine, especially in your case, you rose uh, from like service crew to CEO, and like we've also had this discussion before where the challenge of like um now having to lead your friends before. So like how do you go about it as a leader? How in your daily interaction?
Okay, so I think I mentioned to you before that from a different position in the organization, when I started out as a crew, there was really a relationship bump, so to speak, when I got promoted to different levels of positions, especially when your colleagues are still reporting to you directly. But over time, I realized that empathy is a word that, or it's a value that all managers or leaders has to consider or has to adapt, because it's a precursor for ultimate performance. I mean, people would perform at their best if they know that there are managers and leaders who are supporting them and guiding them all throughout. I always tell myself whenever I see my team, that I need to build a rapport. A rapport is a starting point. Uh, it's hard to provide that conversation that would make them feel okay. I'm okay with my boss, unless the rapport is set. So rapport is built over time. It's about finding the common ground between you and the person that you're speaking to. It's hard to just say to the person, "How are you?" and smile at the person. I think what how empathy will work has to do with building that rapport, that connection first with your team. And as you go along, um, as a coach myself, I would always start with questioning in a light way, like, "How are you today?" Um, and 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 that's a starting point of the conversation. And when you try to listen to how people will respond, it now binds the two person together, and the psychological safety is going to be there. So listen more. Listening more is one of the things that I model. Sometimes, uh, by listening more, your team, your personnel would have more things to share with you. And after all, that's what we want to have in the organization, where people are able to express themselves freely without fear. Um, and given that uh, behavior of giving them enough time to express themselves is a way to build that empathy in that organization. So building that rapport, um, inquiring or questioning, and listening to what they have to say is what we need to model, is how I model uh, empathy in this or emotional intelligence, so to speak, whenever I deal with my team. It's important that uh, in those interactions, you don't only listen to what is heard, you also need to listen to the things that are unheard. And what do I mean by that? There are expressions, maybe behaviors that you would notice. So, for example, the person might say, "Oh, I'm okay today," but you don't see the smile. Then try to capture that. Try to capture that in your day-to-day interaction, because sometimes, especially if you're the boss, no one would probably say directly, "Oh, I'm okay." But if you're sensitive enough, you'll be able to detect that there is something that this employee or this team member is feeling. Capture that. If you're able to capture that, the person would feel good about being in the organization and would feel good that I have a boss, I have a leader who actually listens, who actually gives importance to how I feel, not just to what I want to say.
Thank you so much. That really sounds very simple, and yet quite a bit of leaders actually struggle.
Mm.
This is the brutal truth, especially the part of listening, right? And it's interesting when you said including those that are unheard, and that's the reason why communication skills is one of the most difficult, I would say, like skills for most leaders, right? Because some people, they might just think that communication is about, like, delivering what you want to say. But to be exact about it, like what you've mentioned, there has to be um, a way for you to listen more, including those that are unheard. So as you mentioned, I'm flashing again what Roy shared: supporting team, building rapport, connection, listening more, allowing them to express themselves freely, which is what Sharon also shared earlier, to create that psychological safety, and of course asking questions as well, to really build that connection, right? And before I ask my next question, which will be addressed to Dennis, I'd like to invite our audience, especially those who are watching us live now, to join us in this conversation. If you have any questions or like takeaways from whatever they share, and or insights that you'd like to share to our audience as well, do join us in this conversation. This is not just about us discussing all of these, right? Um, so I'd like to then, because I would say that the exposure, or a lot of the things that both Sharon and Roy do, is really so much around operations, right? And this is an interesting question because, Dennis, a lot of your work is really more so much to sales pressure. Okay, so in high pressure environment, like in the department that you would normally or work with, how can leaders balance empathy with performance expectations?
Thanks, Marilyn. And I also really like the point that Roy made about listening to the things that are unsaid. When it comes to balancing performance expectations and empathy, I don't really see those two things as being in contradiction at all, because I think I make a distinction. Empathy is not the same as pity, or just feeling sorry for someone, or giving them extra leeway. To me, I think empathy in a business context is just about taking the time to think about and understand and be curious about all the different contexts that someone you're working with is bringing to a particular situation or problem, and thinking about how that influences the way they see things, the decisions they might be making, how they act, their behavior. Um, an example that comes to mind is that at many points in my career, I've been in various roles supporting sales teams, either like in a finance or operations capacity. And often in those kinds of roles, there's like a natural tension that develops between the finance side and the sales side, because finance is meant to be sort of the gatekeepers. You have to approve budgets or approve sales targets. And often people on my team would express, frustration with the salesperson, or, this and that. And what I would try to sort of model is, thinking about and thinking out loud, with my team. Well, so and so, this person might be being really difficult. They're pushing back on the sales target, but hey, she's missed her quota, 3 out of the last 4 quarters. She's probably feeling very much under pressure. And so it's natural that that is how she's acting. And that doesn't mean that you're letting her off the hook. But I think if you take the time to understand where the person's coming from and why they might be acting the way they are, you can come up with more creative and, I think, ultimately more effective ways of working around that issue, to actually achieve the result that you're hoping for to get for the benefit of the entire organization. So I think if you miss those things, or you're just not really thinking about them, and you take the sort of the easy way out of just assuming, well, this person is difficult because they're a bad person, usually that mindset is not going to actually help you accomplish anything productive.
Mhm.
And so it's more work to think about to take an empathetic view and think about the context. But I think ultimately that more often than not, that will help you more effectively accomplish the goals you've set out to accomplish.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And if I have to summarize what you just actually shared, it's really so much of understanding the team to get the results, or to help them actually get to the results that your team wants, right? And again, as you've mentioned, it's not really so much of a contradiction, but rather it has to complement uh the empathy as well, or and people, as well as the getting to the results that you want them to get by ensuring that you understand the context as well, or the team themselves. So thank you so much for that. And my next question, maybe Sharon would like to share first. This will be addressed to both Sharon and Dennis on how would you handle emotionally charged situations like layoffs, conflicts, or feedback sessions um, d- when you lead the team. Sharon, you're on mute, by the way.
There. Yeah, I was saying that there will always have we will always have those difficult conversations, and I think the first one that you really have to manage is also your own emotions. So you really need to be self-aware, and at the same time have that mindset of breaking the bias that you have towards the person, because sometimes again people make mistakes and we have those biases in our mind. So really have to break those biases, be self-aware of our emotions, and at the same time listen with the intention to really care. And then of course I would agree with what Saroy also mentioned earlier, that you really have to observe those um those I would say gestures that can affect your conversation. Um and probably to start off with, how do we use, or how do I usually manage difficult conversation? I would always, well, more on asking questions, open-ended questions, acknowledge their emotions, because those are very tough conversations at times. A lot of emotions are ongoing, and you as a leader, you need to be the calmer one. You need to listen, and then you need to not just listen, but also understand where the person is coming from. You don't necessarily correct what they're saying, but more on listening, asking them questions. I understand that you're feeling like this right now. Can you share why you're thinking that way, for example? Because I have several, like, if I will recall right now, I really had several tough conversations, but I think, as what I've mentioned, it's really more on starting from yourself first, because if you have that defense mechanism every time the person is talking, and you think that it's not what you wanted to hear, or it's not it very difficult conversations that you don't you just really have to clear your mind, break those biases, and it would always, I would say, reframe the pain, especially if you're giving tough feedback, right? Because you would always still thank people, especially like I can recall one incident when you have to terminate an employee because of them doing like that violated the code of behavior, first, for example. So you really have to listen to the reasons why they did that, but at the same time, you would also tell them, of course, or make them understand where they made the mistake. And then people with that sense of accountability would always come to that point wherein they would realize that they made a mistake. And then that time you shift the lens, I would say, from blaming the person to resolution. What will be your future step? What will be the next thing that you need to do? Um, because you know that you made a mistake. And if you're the accountable person, you would of course accept those mistakes, right? And then know that it will not happen again, even though your contract would end in this company, then hoping that in the future it won't happen again. And then be again, I will also go back with being transparent. We avoid sugarcoating things when we deliver those bad news, I would say. So it's more on just be transparent, be straightforward, the reason behind that decision, and then what comes next. So the more difficult the message, it should be more clear, and the more calm you are in delivering it. So yeah, I think those are the things in my mind as of the moment in handling difficult conversations.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And again, the good thing or the good news is there are several feedback frameworks, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know any, I mean, our audience don't know any, you can look back to my post yesterday about feedback. And so, Dennis, would you like to add anything? And also, if you can help me answer this question from Harvey Campos. I think this is quite related to this question as well and to what you've shared just now on how do you lead or manage or coach high achievers in your team who are undergoing personal crisis that can lead to burnout. So I think it's a combination of your earlier question and this question.
Okay. Okay, sure. First, I would say I again really agree with what Sharon said. The first point about self awareness being the most important part is I know in moments in my life when I am in denial about my biases or the stress that I'm facing, then there's no way that I can control it, and so being aware of what what baggage you're carrying first is I think really critical. It's hard to always do, but it's something that we should strive for. In terms of um, sort of how do you bring empathy to a situation like a layoff, for example? So I've been through that many times on both sides of the equation. And I think it's, when you're in a leadership position and your company has laid off, a large number of people, it's really challenging. I think there's because I think there's always like a balance between wanting to show your authenticity and your humanness with also wanting to show that a sense of calm, right? Because if you freak out, if you're freaking out about the layoffs, then everyone who's still there that's reporting to you or looks up to you is going to freak out too, right? But then, of course, you don't want to appear like totally cold and indifferent to the fact that many people have been let go. So it's a really tricky balance. I think like my natural tendency is always to try to be transparent and authentic, but you have to be aware of that and be aware that, in my case, I have to be aware that I can take it too far if I'm not careful, and make sure that I guess it's like I think about it like with my kids. I try to be really open with my kids, but they probably, if my 8-year old probably shouldn't know if I'm, if there's like money trouble or something like really serious. I shouldn't worry them with that. So I think it's a sort of a version of that is figuring out where the right boundaries are, so that you can balance being authentic with what is the right kind of level of sort of openness for a given like situation. In terms of like managing, um, I've actually had a lot of like folks that, especially when I was at Twitter, there's a lot of high achievers, very hardworking people that I was often worried about. Maybe not necessarily personal crises, but burnout. Just from working too much, working too hard, and it's tough. I mean, I think it's if there's a personal crisis, I'm not sure if the question from Harvey is more about like when someone's in personal crisis and sort of their way of coping with that is to just focus on work all the time, and that's how they sort of avoid the problem. If in those kind of situations, if you're aware that that's sort of the dynamic that's happening, I would always try to approach that person and talk with them and say maybe there's other outlets for dealing managing through a personal crisis besides only just working really late and putting it all into your work, because at the end of the day that's not going to release that's just avoiding the problem instead of really addressing it, and usually doesn't lead to good outcome. And then when there's some things that learn to burn out that are just because of someone who's just a natural workaholic, which I certainly am. It's hard. I think some people are workaholics, and that just because they genuinely enjoy their work, that's sort of the way I feel. But even when you're working long hours because you like your work, there's still such thing as too much of a good thing, and you still need to strive for some sort of balance in that. And I can't really think of a easy fit answer to that problem when you have someone on your team that's in that situation, other than kind of talking them through it, kind of trying to steer them in the direction of trying to get a little bit more balance. Maybe if they're overworking because they're just super high achievers and not a personal crisis, maybe just giving them some affirmation that, hey, everyone on this team or everyone in this company already knows how talented and how much you contribute. Um, Even if you dial it back a little bit and balance things out a little bit, nobody is going to think that you're suddenly slacking off, because your reputation is already sort of established. So that might be one thing I would try if that's what I suspect might be happening.
Thank you for your insights around that question. Again, approaching the person to help them and say maybe there are different outlets, or maybe it's like us who are really hardworking and because we enjoy what we do. And so that's how they are. So thank you, but I hope that answers your question, Harvey. If there's any like additional or like follow-up question with the clarification by Dennis, if because it depends also on the situation, right? As he mentioned, yeah, he shared with us a smile as well. So I guess Dennis managed to answer the question. But Sir Roy, to continue with you, if you have any add-on, like take on that question by Harvey, feel free to share with us together with your next question, which is how can organizations make empathy a cultural value, not just a leadership trait?
Okay, so I'll add the point about high achievers, or let's say, I think you mentioned that maybe that's how the person is, and they just enjoy working, working, and working. But we all know that anything that's excessive, or if the person is pushing themselves to a limit, they may not know it. And in fact, it's too late for some managers or some personals to realize that they are already experiencing burnout. They don't. Sometimes the high achievers are just they just keep on going, and somebody needs to tell them, "Hey, you're doing just right. You're doing what you're supposed to do," and it's important that they are reminded um, that anything that they do that is too much or pushing them to the limit will eventually lead to some sort of burnout. So if someone will be able to tell the person, slow down a bit, so that you can regain your energy and move forward. That's my take on that point that Harvey said, that Harvey asked. So we can prevent potential burnout if we are able to also see the unheard. I keep coming back to that because sometimes there are personalities who would not tell you that I'm feeling burned out already, and but you'll see in some of their behaviors that there are signs already that they are closing into that burnout stage, and try to capture that. As to the question on how do we make empathy a cultural value, not just a leadership trait, um, you see, leaders must first adopt the value, and if it becomes a behavior um, that leaders would have every time they're in the office or in any organization. Because as we always say, it's not just about what you hear. It's also about the actions that you see from your leaders, and that's what create values. And sometimes, even if you don't say, "I want malasakit" or "I want teamwork," even if you don't say that, but if they see you promoting teamwork, meaning encouraging everyone to help out, um, um, the team is being encouraged to show support to one another. That is already the beginning of building a culture of value in the organization. It always starts from the leaders. So if you have that leadership trait, it's the starting point. But how else can you do it in such a way that the organization will feel that this company is a company that promotes empathy? There are so many ways. Of course, I already mentioned that lead by modeling. So the leaders they have to model the way. They have to build the rapport. They have to learn how to listen more, and they have to be transparent as well, but be ready to listen to what the team has to say. Then you can create different systems in the organization. I think Sharon mentioned about performance management. If we built in those behaviors in relation to empathy into our performance reviews, to meeting norms, where respect, support, and understanding is being displayed, then that's how you form the system in the store or system in your organization. So there are so many ways, but what's important is lead by modeling by the leaders, and then you build in the systems or incorporate empathy in the different systems that you may have in your organization. Even meetings. Meetings should have norms that would include empathy as well. So if that is consciously driven by the leaders, then it will become a cultural value. And of course, it pays to recognize as well, not just the leaders, but members of the team who would display those behaviors. It's good to recognize them, to catch them. Like, let's say you create a group sessions, a group that would allow members of the team to express themselves, and the person leading it is encouraging everyone to do it, and you capture that scenario. Then I think it's important that that person be recognized as well, just to prove the point that we value empathy. We value supporting one another. We respect one another, and we are here to listen. So lead the way, incorporate empathy in the different systems, people management systems in your organization, and recognize those who are doing it. Make it known to everyone that this guy, this person, has been listening, has been showing support and respect to every member of the team.
Thank you for that very practical ways for us to be able to inculcate or incorporate empathy, not only as a leadership skill, but also as part of the company culture. So, again, leading by modeling, incorporating empathy in the system, listening more, and recognizing people who or your team members who are actually using this in the organization. So thank you so much for that, Sir Roy. And before we end our conversation today, I guess I will just ask this final question for everyone. I believe this is very important, or probably an invitation for you to actually leave your final message to our audience on with regards to being an empathetic leader, right? So if you have a magic wand that you can use, what will you do with it, particularly around our theme of being an empathetic leader? If you can give it just in one sentence, um, please feel free to do so. Would like to go first? Are we going ladies first? You're on mute, Sharon. Ah.
Okay. So if I will be the fairy godmother, no, I'm just kidding. If I had that magic wand, I would say that leaders should have that heart that knows how to listen to their members, because that's the start. Modeling the way, as what Sir Roy mentioned, but at the same time, you as a leader, you act with integrity, you inspire your people, and you make every team member feel um deeply seen and valued, and also being heard. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you for your magic wand. Would like to go next?
I can go. In the spirit of self awareness, I would say for me, myself, if I had a magic wand, I would make myself immediately learn how to be less defensive. And this would be not only, this would be as much for my marriage as well as in the workplace as a leader. I think it's a tendency that I've always had to fight against since I was a little kid. Like I always want to be right. I always want to, not let anyone prove me wrong. And I'm aware of it, but sometimes being aware isn't always enough to change it. So if I have the magic wand, that's what I would change.
Sorry, did I get that right? Learn how to be less defensive.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you for your magic wand. And Sir Roy, how about you?
Well, I would say that uh, build empathy in yourself first. You cannot give something that you don't have. So if you show empathy to yourself as well, understanding where you are, how you feel about the situation, and that's what I wish that my magic wand will be able to do. Let leaders understand that they have to have empathy to themselves first.
Wow, that's great. Something that I need to learn as well for myself and give to myself. Giving empathy to yourself. Thank you so much, Sir Roy. Let me just look at the comment before we end this session. Well said, Roy. Okay. I think Sir Roy's connection um, gone slow. So, but Harvey shared his comment. Well said, Roy. I think that's the comment or answer, add on answer to your question. So I'm not sure if Sir Roy is still with us, but anyway, we're done with our conversation. Thank you so much, Dennis, Sharon, Roy, for joining us in today's valuable conversation. It's very powerful, and I would say it's very insightful as well. And if you're watching this on a replay, feel free to continue to engage with us, give us your question, and if you want to address that to specific people, please do tag them. I'm sure they'll be more than willing to answer you. And before we end this conversation, please do take uh, some time to be able to reflect on what one leadership moment where empathy changed the outcome for the better for you. Do share with us in the comment as well. And a few announcements. If your solutions help leaders collaborate, align, and grow, it's your moment to shine and to stand out where it counts. So we would like to invite sponsors as well to join us in the Interconnected Leader Summit. This is gonna be on August 30. Um, and also for those leaders, especially in the corporate or business owners who would like small and medium business owners who would like to lead smarter, collaborate better, and deliver more. Join us in this summit again on the 30th of August. It will be both in person and online. And of course, if you are a change management expert in your organization and would like to join our next conversation, do PM me. Right? Uh, and thank you so much, Harvey, for engaging with us and joining us today. And he was saying thank you, Marilyn, Dennis, Roy, and Sharon, for an insightful discussion. I hope everyone enjoyed as much as I do as well. And see you on the summit. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye for now.
Thank you.